doing something on social media for the sake of doing it and it doesn't feel good, then don't do that.
Welcome to Motivation to Write, a show where I talk to the experts who offer their advice and knowledge to help writers like you and me step into our full potential. Today we have with us Rachele Wright, and she's going to give us some digital marketing tips to boost our blogs. But before we get to Rachele, let's catch up. My next virtual cocktail party for women who write takes place on Friday, November 27th at 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The RSVPs will be opening on November 13th, so keep an eye out. Actually, I think by the time you will see this, RSVPs are already open. So check out my website, zazo.com, and RSVP. It is limited to 8 participants so that everyone has a chance to speak and give some input. So once again, virtual cocktail party for women who write, November 27th, 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Pacific time. Now let's learn a little bit about Miss Rachele Wright. Rachele Wright is a feisty Sicilian who constantly tells people that in her next life, she'll be a mermaid. But on more serious note, she has a knack for teaching complicated concepts in simplified formats that actually stick, which means that when it comes to your marketing, she'll always make sure that any strategy she gives you is actually something you can realistically execute. For the past 10 years, she has worked exclusively with businesses that are determined and dedicated to working smarter, not harder. Her best work is done with business owners who understand the value behind their business, know exactly who they want to target, but need a little help with the simplified digital marketing strategy that will keep the sales flowing and the profits rolling. She is the owner of Wright Outcomes, a marketing firm that helps businesses come up with amazing business strategies. Okay, hi Rachele Wright. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being here. Very happy to have you because you are a marketing expert and I am not. And I really want to talk to marketing experts because I myself am a beginning blogger. I know a lot of my readers are beginning bloggers who have a lot of questions about how to get more readers, how to put the word out about their blog, how to attract people to their blog, all that good stuff. So first, why don't you just tell us a little bit about how you got into marketing, Rachele?
Yes, yeah. Well, it was about 10 years ago. So in I call it my past life, but it's still always part of my current life. But my original life, I was a musician by trade. So I went to school for music and all kinds of stuff, but I also went and got a degree in entertainment business, which was very heavily focused in marketing because who cares about music if we can't get people to listen to it?
Right.
So I got my start working within the music schools that I was teaching in, where trying to help get more clients and students for myself. And then just as someone, when you're part of a small business, even if you're just an employee, things happen, you end up wearing a lot of hats. And I would, take opportunities as they come. So I really wanted to apply the marketing lessons that I had learned in school to be like, hey, let's really see if we can put these to practice. So it's really grateful that I had really amazing small business owners within the music world that were supportive of letting me kind of take free reign a little bit and experiment. So that's how I got into digital marketing, specifically of like, how can we optimize our efforts to keep costs low, right? How do we optimize social media? How do we optimize our website? How do we tap into email marketing? And over the years, I just really expanded that outside of just music. But I've always kept a focus around small businesses, entrepreneurs, people who are really trying to make a go at it for themselves. So what I specialize in is that it's digital marketing, specifically the organic growth of it all. So meaning nothing or everything that would be free, right? So we're not talking about advertising. We're not talking about paid ads, but all these things that you can do for free in exchange for time, right, and effort, to promote and build your business, whether, building your website and then optimizing that, maintaining that, growing that. So you're showing up more on Google through searches. How do we use our social media to get our name out without exhausting us? What is email marketing and why do we need to use it? So all those things.
That's really great. I love how you picked all this up in music school. I was a music undergrad
Oh,
also.
nice.
Yeah. And I think it's so cool how, because you weren't like intentionally looking to learn marketing, right? This is something that you kind of just had to do.
Yeah.
And you were good at it, or you really liked it, obviously.
Yeah,
Right?
I think what I loved about it is that in the same ways that I loved music, it allowed me to be creative. It allowed you to be innovative, so, there's all kinds of things you have to do to run a small business, but the marketing aspect, yes, it can be a lot to learn, but the really fun part, especially about digital marketing, is you can make it your own. Once you understand these areas, once you play around with different social media or play around with different techniques, you can make it your own of what's going to work best for you. So I really enjoy that aspect too, of that there really is not a cookie cutter, this is the way, this is the only way. And I think we're really fortunate, especially having all these digital tools, that while yes, it can be overwhelming, and sure, we'd all love some cookie cutter way to just make it happen some days. In other ways, what I hope people take away is that it doesn't have to be hard, right? It doesn't have to be overly this huge process. It can be minimal, and it can work really well for you based on the way you enjoy it.
Okay, so I'm really excited because you mentioned creativity, and I love creativity. Maybe it's because I'm also a musician. I'm more of a writer than a musician, but I am a musician. So on your website, you have something called marketing strategy, like in big letters. So how, as a beginning blogger, how would that apply to me? Do I need, I guess everyone needs a marketing strategy, but what would a marketing strategy for a blogger look like?
Yeah, so you really do, you got to start with a strategy, because if you don't have a solid plan and purpose behind that plan, then what happens is we hit burnout a lot faster. We start getting frustrated with our efforts. To be honest, you end up doing a lot of things you don't even need to be doing, right? Because we do all the things. That's what happens when we don't have a strategy. We're like, I'm just going to try it all and figure out what sticks, and then I'll stick with that. But that's just not the best way to tackle it. So to be perfectly honest, there isn't, again, a one size fits all strategy, but as a blogger, you need to tap into a few different areas. First, you need a place for this blog to live, right? So you're going to need this website, right? And you need to maintain that blog at some level of consistency, whether that's weekly, monthly, especially to gain traction on your blog. You do have to be updating it. And if you can update it on some consistent, regular schedule, it's going to do better than, well, I went hard for a few months and then I kind of slacked or whatnot. So, that's where, reminding yourself that finding creative flows where maybe you can write a few blogs at a time, but then you space them out and schedule them out so that you don't have to stress when maybe a week from now you don't have that flow. Right? So you've got content when you have it. The other thing that's really important is, obviously, now you need eyes to get to this website to read your blog. So there's a few different things you need to think about. Who are you speaking to, right? As a blogger, who is your audience? And the important part of that is you have to figure out, where do these people live on the internet, right? To be honest, the good news is we live in all the places. Everyone is everywhere. You can make any platform work, truly, but some work better than others, right? So, depending on the topics you're talking about, there might be more conversation inside Instagram or Facebook groups or on Pinterest of where you put more of your energy. You can absolutely put your energy in all those areas, but those would be the three and maybe LinkedIn in there. Let's say your blog's a little more professional based, right? You maybe LinkedIn is where. So you really want to figure out where, first of all, where's the one spot, pick one platform just to start, and figure out where are those people living, right? And then the second thing is like, okay, you've picked that platform. Now, how do you, social media wise, if we're talking about social media, now how do you create content that's optimized the best for that platform to gain traction on that platform? Because to be honest, the things you do on Instagram are not the same things you do on Facebook, and they're not the same things you do on LinkedIn, and they're not the same things you do on Pinterest. So you have to create content that works best for that platform, and you got to play by their rules, right? So if you are someone who enjoys socialization, right, and talking to your people and commenting, engaging, and really doing more the physical work around building a community of around your blog, places like Instagram and Facebook groups are going to do really well, right? Because that's going to require more manpower of you and time to like get in there and really explain your value. A platform like Pinterest is a lot more introverted and passive, right? Where it's the only place that I say we can post and ghost, right? So you can push content out there that's optimized for what people are searching for. And then your pins are showing up that then lead them back to your blog.
You know, I just learned, I was talking to another marketer, Melanie Hirschhorn, and she was like, you know, Pinterest is a search engine.
Correct. Yeah, like, even though Pinterest is a social media platform, or we lump it in with social media because of kind of how we, as users, are engaging with it. It is a social media, or I'm sorry, it is a search engine platform. It operates just like Google, and we go to Pinterest with a planning or purchasing mindset because we go and we type in something specific of what we're looking for. Yes, we have our home feeds, and yes, we've got things that we follow, and maybe we look at that a little bit, but truly most people, the second they open up Pinterest, they're typing in something. They're looking for something specific. And I think that Pinterest is always this platform that feels a little overwhelming to a lot of people. They think it requires a lot of work to understand and figure out and maintain and build, and there's just a ton that you got to do in there. And while it does require a little bit of legwork to set up, what I've really found is that once you do that legwork, the maintaining of it is truly a lot less work than a lot of other social platforms, because you're not commenting, you're not having to engage with other people, you're just pushing the content out there, you know, and that's like, this nice sigh of relief of social media of like, I can just kind of, again, post and ghost. So I really,
when she told me that, it just kind of blew my mind, because I just remember Pinterest. I've always known Pinterest as just this place where people make these like vision boards of stuff that they want or stuff that they like looking at or whatever. I never thought of it as like a place where you'd actually go looking for something. It just
has always been a pretty big platform for bloggers, right? And blogging content, because I'd say in its infancy, in the beginning, the people who were dominating Pinterest were people doing recipes and people who were DIYers. And anytime you would click through to those links, whether you wanted it or not, you were going to land on their blog before you got to the recipe or before you got to the project, right? So it was really bloggers who were optimizing it that way. So Pinterest has always been an incredible platform for bloggers to push their content out. And I think what's really great is that, you know, you're a blogger, you're a writer, right? And maybe visual design, that kind of thing is not your forte, right? What's really great is that there's tools like Canva, which is a graphic design platform that you just can go, it's free. You can type into the little box, you literally type Pinterest, you click the button. There are hundreds of templates that are optimized for Pinterest that all you have to do is put your branding elements on there, your fonts or colors or your pictures, and it's good to go. Now you've got pins that are they're already going to do well on Pinterest visually, right? And you just got to provide that great content that's showing up on your blog.
So this brings up, since you brought up like visual, how important is it if you're creating this pin that it is visually appealing, and what should the pin say? Because someone's going to go to Pinterest and let's say they're looking for, I don't know, apple pie recipes, right? Okay, so they're going to type in apple pie recipes and they're going to get all these pins that pop up. What can I do to make my pin really catch their attention?
So first things first, you want it to be optimized for Pinterest, which means you want it to be, it's more long and tall, right? So it's not the 1x1 square on Instagram, right? Those, you can pin those, but they just don't do as well, right? So we want this long and tall pin. Again, if you go to Canva, they're already the correct size, right? So you can use that. And if you go into Canva too, what you're going to see, not only there, but then if you start typing in the stuff into Pinterest, is stuff like that. What you tend to see is a pin that has text that is either exactly what you typed in, or it's like, okay, so someone's looking for apple pie recipe, right? And maybe the pin's going to say, best apple pie recipe, and it's going to have this really amazing picture, right? And then when you want to do whatever you got to do to get someone to click through that pin. So you want to be as specific as possible around what you're talking about, and B, this is where your headline, your talent of grabbing someone's attention with your writing needs to come into play. So you do want to have a high quality visual, and you do want to have a really good line, right? And if you're still stuck, like if you're still like, I don't really know what that means, right? The first thing you honestly should do is go to Pinterest, type in what you would be pinning and see what shows up. That's going to give you a better idea of how you can optimize your stuff, right? It's not to say take what everyone's doing and copy it, right? It's just going to give you the right direction around, okay, since I'm talking about this, here's how I need to, make it look, feel, sound.
Right. So how then, so if we're using Pinterest as a search engine, what if we're into like video stuff? Is that going to be more Instagram?
Yeah, but video also works on Pinterest. I'm just gonna be honest, video is gonna work everywhere because video is our world, especially now, right? Video is constantly being pushed on all platforms, and it's going to be pushed more and more and more everywhere, right?
I've never seen video on Pinterest.
Yeah,
I've been on Pinterest a lot anyway. So
it's fairly new for Pinterest, and there's not as much video content as there are like stagnant, picture content that leads to then pins. But see, the benefit of video and embedding video on things like Pinterest or Instagram or whatever, and the reason why all these platforms push video as much as possible is because video keeps you on that platform. You sit there and you watch it, right? So a video, whereas if you find a pin on Pinterest, it's just an image, and you want to learn more about what's behind that pin, you're going to click it, and now you're not on Pinterest anymore, right? Whereas a video that's now been pinned to Pinterest has this feature of like autoplay, and now you're going to sit there and just watch it, right? So now you're staying on the platform longer. So it really doesn't matter what platform you use. If you focus on video content in whatever way, shape, or form, it's going to do better. It's going to do well on all platforms: Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest.
Okay, Rachele, when we were talking about videos, I was thinking of YouTube, and what's really popular on YouTube now are these like video versions of sales letters, like where someone not gets up, but they're in front of the camera and they're telling you a story that's leading you into this product they're going to introduce. And they're usually pretty long. How effective are those types of videos? Like, should we be making a long form video to sell our stuff, or should we stick with something a little shorter?
It might be a mix of both. Again, that's really going to depend on your audience. Your audience, I think, again, if it's more education, if what you're talking about is more educational based, your audience is going to have more of stamina to sit through something probably longer, right? Whereas, but to be honest, if that feels like a lot for you, you could even take that long form content and just split those up into shorter segments. Now it's a series or something like that. You could do that too. You could do it even with, if let's say you record something long, you could still split up that video into shorter pieces of video and push those videos to different platforms, right? Where shorter video does well. So like think something on YouTube, people are more willing to sit for a longer period of time on YouTube. Whereas somewhere like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, we've gotten to the point where our attention span on video is about 8 seconds. So that's like, I know that's really, it's really short. Now I'm not saying that everyone's clicking away after 8 seconds, but it's because those platforms have kind of trained our brain to just like keep moving through the stories, keep moving through the video, right? Whereas Pinterest, YouTube, these are search engines. We're specifically looking for something. We're willing to wait and like sit through what we need to. So what I would suggest is like, yeah, do a long form content, do that on something like YouTube, pin it somewhere like Pinterest, then take that same video from YouTube and cut it up into shorter videos. So you don't have to keep duplicating your efforts. Cut it into shorter videos and put those on Instagram, those on Facebook, those on LinkedIn.
Right. Yeah. You know, it's so funny because I teach high school, and now it's all the kids, they just watch YouTube.
Oh yeah.
They don't watch regular TV. And I was, once they were in, it was like raining outside or whatever. So there were a lot of them inside my class during lunch, and they were watching a video of some woman who was acting silly in front of a green screen. I mean, it was just the most silly, mundane stuff, and they're glued to the screen. I'm thinking, what am I missing? But it's so crazy how YouTube has just completely replaced like primetime television.
Yeah.
For that generation. Yeah.
I know. That woman, she found her audience and she went all in. That's really what it was.
Yeah, she found her audience for sure. Okay, so Rachele, if we are bloggers, I've heard it said that you should always make some type of offer. Like at the end of your blog post, make an offer. At the end of your video, make an offer. Is that important? I mean, is that?
So an offer is a pretty, I want to just clear, like, just so you know, an offer can be as big or as specific of a term as you need it to be. So an offer could be what I think a better term is that you should have some sort of call to action. You should have them, you should always have something you want them to do, right? So maybe all you want them to do is leave a comment, maybe, and share their experience. Great, but be direct about it. Tell them that's what you want them to do. Maybe, and ideally, you'd also want them to, you really only want like one call to action. You don't want to confuse people with too many calls to action, because what happens is when we have too many directions, like, okay, I want you to comment, I want you to click here, I want you to sign up, like we end up doing nothing. We end up picking nothing because we're like, oh, it's too many options, right? So a really good call to action would be to have some sort of newsletter block, a newsletter sign up, whatever. This is really great for, if you've driven traffic, if you've taken the time to do all this marketing, to drive people to the website, to look at your blog, you really want to find a way to capture their attention longer, right? Because again, like I said, we're only paying attention for like 8 seconds. So the best way to do that is through capturing their email address. It's very important to remember that in all social media, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, whatever, that is borrowed space. It could disappear and go away whenever, for your audience, for all of us, whatever, you don't own those fans and followers, right? Places like your website and your email marketing, those are yours, right? When someone is giving you their email, it's yours till they unsubscribe. Your website is yours, right? You control that space, you can control that narrative, and you can speak directly to the people who are interested in it. So where I think it's great on a blog is to encourage a call to action around getting someone on a newsletter, right? Because that's an easy ask. If they at the very least like your writing, and let's say maybe within your newsletter, your email list, let's say you've got a freebie or something else that you can offer them in exchange for them giving you their email, right? So let's say you're talking about apple pie recipes. Oh, well, maybe you've got a free, I don't know, 5 to 10 page ebook of other recipes. If they give you their email, you'll send it right over to them, right? So that's like another enticing way for something you can give them of value in exchange for getting that email. And then from there, you're going to want to email these people, obviously, and finding a process of email marketing, and whether that's a weekly basis or a monthly basis or whatever. Within that email marketing, if you're trying to like make money and monetize your blog, that's actually a really good spot as well to make those bigger asks, right? Because you've already got the person's attention. They've already said they're interested in you. They already want to learn more. That's another great place to do a bigger ask. So you can absolutely, I see blogs all the time though that have like affiliate links and things like that. And I think that all of that is great. But when you're first starting out, that can be hard, especially if you don't have the audience yet, to start driving those sales. So what I think is really important to start is, how do you build up this community of people who are already paying attention? And if you're social, at the very least, it's really focusing on building up that email list where you're sending things directly to their inbox. They're paying attention to it a lot more closely than they are on scrolling through Instagram or Facebook, where they might not even see your post.
Right. Okay, so let's keep going with this building your audience. Let's talk about Twitter, because that's the one I use the most. I just find it easier. That's the easiest one for me at the moment, and I've been on it for a long time, but not active on it for a long time. I've just recently I've been active for maybe, I don't know, 4 months or something. So how effective is Twitter as far as directing people to a blog?
I find Twitter to be tricky because Twitter's a little bit of this outlier. When we think of Twitter, it's a platform where, to be quite honest, a lot of people are getting their news, their daily news, right? So people are logging into Twitter to see what's happening right now in the world and whatever, what's happening. We see it as what's trending, but to be honest, what's trending is our new, right? So I'm not just meaning like politically wise, but like what's trending is what anyone's talking about. That's newsworthy, right? So it can be difficult to maintain any traction on a platform like that unless you're part of some sort of trending discussion, right? The other thing is that I think Twitter can be, I'm not saying you shouldn't use it, but I think it's hard to use Twitter to build from zero, right? Whereas if you have an audience and you do like to socialize with them, they like to socialize with you, having that Twitter from there to do that, like, engagement conversation, I think works really well. It's going to be, I'm not saying it's impossible to get people from Twitter to like read your blog, buy your book or something like that, but it's a little bit harder to make these direct asks like that when we're using Twitter more as, we're here to have a conversation, that's it. So it's not to say that you shouldn't be doing it and you shouldn't be putting it out there, but Twitter's also a platform where, truthfully, the people who are getting the most traction on Twitter outside of mega celebrities and whatever, people who are really building it, they're tweeting like 20 times a day. And it's like, those aren't scheduled tweets. Those are their tweets. And so it's just a lot of work for you to have to do to really build that audience. But I think the best place for you is to find your people on Twitter and start conversing with them as much as possible, just about whatever is being talked about, just to get them to show any semblance of interest in whatever you're doing.
Right. And, I see a lot of frustrated authors on Twitter who are just like, is anyone paying attention? It's not just authors. I guess I say authors because that's who I mostly follow. We see a lot of people, is anyone seeing my tweet? I'm not getting any. A lot of them think that their followers will translate to buyers for their book.
Correct. And that's not necessarily true. These numbers, these followers are people who are that could have absolutely been more true 5, even 10 years ago, but our attention is spread so thin. A follower is really just someone who has a vague inkling of interest in whatever you're saying. That's really all that means right now. So it's like,
or it's just someone who wants you to follow them back.
That too. That game is very active and prevalent on all platforms. Absolutely. So the other thing is to remember too is that all these platforms have algorithms and things that they're doing to customize the experience for every individual user. So absolutely, it's extremely frustrating when we put content out and we think, oh my God, I have 1,000 followers, or I have 5,000 followers, even 10,000 followers. Why are only 100 people seeing this, right? And that's because of a few different reasons. It's A, how consistently are you posting for that platform the way that they want you to? And B, you have no idea what else your followers are engaging with, that like a platform like Twitter is going to, again, their goal is to keep you on the platform, right? So they're going to keep pushing things to you that seem to keep you on the platform, meaning here are things you seem to like or retweet a lot. So we're going to show you more of those people or more or that person's stuff. So what happens is that now you, who may be posting great content, is getting drowned out from just some algorithm process, right? That has nothing to do with really, it's not to say that your content's not valuable. It's just to say that someone else's experience now dictated something else. So on average, you should take your follower count on any given platform and just assume that only about 5 to 8% of those people are going to see what you put out there. It used to be around 10. It's a little less than that now. So really only a handful at a time.
Yeah, I see that a lot too. And I feel that sometimes. Like, I have this many followers and I'm only getting this much attention. So is it, when you talk about the algorithm, if I'm following 2,000 people, I don't see all 2,000 of it. Okay.
No, and you'll probably notice you see a lot of the same people over and over again, right? I think I'm not exactly sure what the number is on Twitter, but I do know like the number typically on Facebook and Instagram is the last 50 people that you've consistently engaged with, that keep showing you over and over again. So if you started digging into that list of people you follow, every once in a while, you'd probably be like, oh, I totally forgot I was following that person. And then all of a sudden you'd click on there and you're going to assume, oh, they must just not be active. And then you're going to click and then you're going to see they are, and you're going to be like, that's really odd. I wonder why I'm not seeing it. If you start engaging with a few of those posts, Twitter would be like, oh, I guess you want to see that. Here, we'll start showing you that. But then that means sometimes someone else is going to fall off that track. And now we're going to do this cycle again. There used to be a time when things were chronological. They actually had an end. Like, I don't know if you remember, at one point in time on Instagram, you could actually, there would be a message at the bottom saying, you saw everything today. Right. And
I'm not even on Instagram yet. Well, I was for a minute and I just couldn't figure it out. So I kind of,
it's a long time ago. There was a Instagram where you'd get to the bottom of Instagram and they'd say, you read everything today. And you'd be like, oh, okay. But then they developed what's now called infinite scroll, which is what we can do on all platforms where they will let you scroll forever. So there is no bottom. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So it's just things to keep in mind, that these platforms have their own processes, they have their own mechanisms, and every single person who's following you is their screens look nothing like yours, or what you're following, everything's different. So what I suggest is, any social media platform you're on, you really need to understand that platform and how to optimize on that platform to just have your best chance, right? So like I said, with Twitter, you got to tweet a lot. You have to tweet a lot. And to be honest, some of your tweets need to just be relevant to whatever's trending sometimes. And this is where your cleverness with writing needs to come into play. How can you tie in something that maybe has nothing to do with what you're talking about, but make it relevant, and now it's timely, and now people can relate to that,
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it requires some creativity.
Yeah. Okay. So my tweets are not going out to all of my followers. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. So then let's talk about Instagram, since you brought up Instagram. Very good for video content, I hear.
Yeah. Instagram is a beast though. Like Instagram has, especially now in the past few months, they have, Instagram started as a way to share photos, right? So there's the traditional feed of photos with a caption. There's now Instagram stories, right? Which are 15-second clips of things. There's Instagram Live, which is similar to like Facebook Live or any other live. There's IGTV, right? Which is, some accounts have longer than 10 minutes, but they're usually no longer than like 10-minute videos, right? Similar to, that was their way to compete with YouTube a little bit, right? To get you on the platform longer. And now they have what's called Instagram Reels, which is their way of combating TikTok. So it's very TikTok focused, like it's this quick, keep scrolling kind of thing. So Instagram right now it's a lot, right? And there's a lot of fatigue on that platform with people who are like, who has time to create all that content? My goodness, that's a lot of different content to have to do. So yes, video does super well, but your IGTV video isn't going to work on Reels, might not necessarily go to your stories. How often are you going live? Oh, and also your feed, right? So it's not that you shouldn't use it by any means, but again, it's just understanding realistically that, yeah, video content does well. The new flashy feature on Instagram right now is Reels. So you got to be prepared to be pushing out some more Reels if you want to do well on that platform currently. The best way to get started with Reels is to get on Instagram and watch some Reels. So then you understand, okay, here's what's happening here.
Isn't that like Snapchat? Is Snapchat?
Yeah.
Is that
Snapchat is very similar? It's very similar. Yeah.
Okay.
All these platforms are trying to compete with each other by being each other, which it can be very frustrating. Very frustrating.
That's so funny. They're all trying to be each other. Okay, so you brought up this important concept of like creating content for these platforms and how overwhelming that can be. How much of our time should we be investing in the digital marketing?
So you're going to have to spend time marketing your business and your blog and whatever to get an audience, but where you spend that time and how you spend that time, again, will be different. So you really need to think about, again, a few things: who your audience is, who are these people, and where do they spend the most time, which you can do that research pretty easily with Google and whatnot, especially if you know who you're speaking to, right, really well. And then, to be perfectly honest, you need to spend some time thinking about what are you willing to do, and what not just willing to do, but can and also not just tolerate doing, but actually will enjoy to a certain level doing. Because you can be everywhere and you can be doing all the things, but again, if it all drives you crazy, you hate it, it's just a huge burden on you week after week, you're not going to maintain that consistency at all. So start small, right? Start where your energy lies. To be honest, there's a really great synergy between having a website, maintaining it consistently, having an email opt-in list area, a place to get someone on a newsletter, and then spending time pinning to Pinterest or using there's a lot of scheduling apps that you can use, like Tailwind is a great scheduling platform for Pinterest. Put a bunch of pins together, put it up in the scheduler, and then walk away and let it do its thing. To me, what I've found with working with people for a long, long time is that having a website, email, and Pinterest is a great loop to keep going on, right? Because Pinterest is, even though it is social media, like we mentioned, it is that search engine platform, which means your content lives longer on it. Your content doesn't live that long on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. It's timely. You got minutes, maybe a day, right?
Does it live long on YouTube? Because someone was telling me.
YouTube and Pinterest. Yep, YouTube and Pinterest. It's going to live longer because this is the reason why you can type in something into YouTube and you're going to get a video from 2017, but it was what you were looking for, right? Because they're just trying to show you the best of whatever it is you need to see, right? So that your content can live for years on these platforms, right? Now, does that mean you can't have, or you shouldn't have a Facebook or Instagram or whatever? That's going to be up to you. I think that there's value in having at least one of those platforms because we kind of have like a stigma around, like, if someone doesn't have a Facebook page, are they even doing anything? Or if they don't have an Instagram. And part of it too is just a place, or it's like you have Twitter. It's good to have one place where your community can talk to you if they need to, right? If they want to talk to you directly, and it's faster to do that through social media. It's always good to have one, right? Just for that aspect alone.
Right.
So I find that it requires the least amount of energy to maintain: website, email, and Pinterest. So if you're looking for the lowest barrier, right, that's going to give you the biggest return on viewership, on subscription, or people who are actually subscribed to your blog and that sort of thing, that cycle is going to work really well.
So then let's talk about the content of your website, because that has to be valuable. I mean, your website has to be focused. The message of your website should be clear and valuable in order to get people to want to subscribe to your newsletter that you're promoting, right? Can you talk a little bit about the role that, like, the message, and what I mean by that, or the purpose of the blog, like, what do you want your audience to do, think, or feel after they visited your blog? How important is that?
Well, I think it's very important, right? Because it is really important that yes, your writing reflects you and what you stand for and what you believe in, whatever, right? But that it also speaks to the people that you really want it to speak to as well, right? So you want to make sure that you have this, at the very least, cohesive branded presence that goes throughout the rest of your site, right? So your homepage should really reflect, a good overview of what they're about to dive into if they keep going through your site, right? And give them some good places of, like, if you're looking for the blog, here's my latest 3 blogs, click one of them, things like that. Your about page should really encompass, I think a solid about page that, yes, it should tell about you, but it should also speak to the reader too, so that they feel like they can see themselves in you, right? So that they feel like they have value in whatever it is you have to say.
So can we talk about that? So, because the about page is important, and I kind of struggle. I find myself always going back and, like, changing some stuff, because when you said that they want to be able to see themselves, like, they want to be able to relate to you. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not just, because I see a lot of about pages where they're written in third person, like, Shelly is a blah, blah, blah. And to me, that feels a bit distant and a little I don't know, I want to say cocky, but it just doesn't feel
Mm-hmm.
like I can connect to you if you're talking about yourself in third person. So is it important to, or does it matter if you're speaking in first or third person in your about page? And how open should you, like, how can you relate? How can you relate is what I'm trying to ask.
I think that I don't know if I would say there's hard and fast rules around like it should be in first or third person. I think that's going to be more of your comfort level of what you feel better about. But in terms of explaining on your about page of how people can relate to you, it's the about page. First of all, is one of the most highly top visited pages on any website. People click it compulsively all the time. So it's important to remember that the about page is not just about you, it's about the site. It's about what they're digesting on this site. So that's what you want to. So if you even have a little bit of an area after you talk about yourself, right, of just being like, here's what you can expect, from this site. We're going to talk about this, and this, and what it's kind of like laying the land of not only expectations, but how they can engage, what how can you pull them into your world as well. So like, sharing social feeds, if you have that, oh, we'd love to hear from you on our Facebook page or whatever all the time, or follow us here because that's where we do more community stuff. And so it's remembering that the about page is not just about you, but about the site itself, about whatever your brand is.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I didn't really think about that. Because people want to know, about the person behind the blog, but they also want to know what this blog is about, how it's going to help me.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, that makes
and
sense.
A good and then having a contact page with a not just like your email, but a form. Like forms tend to convert better than just saying like, here's my email, feel free, right? So a contact page with a form that would then send to your email. And then having in the footer of your website so that it shows up on every single page is something like that newsletter or email list opt-in. So it's, again, every time they scroll to the bottom, they see it, they're prompted. It's another call to action to get them. Some people are only going to spend a few seconds on your website and bounce away, but maybe they digest enough in just those few seconds where they're like, hey, I don't want to forget this. So something like a place where they can put their email is going to trigger for them later. Oh yeah, that's right, I want to read more, because you're going to be emailing them.
How important is it to get comments on your blog?
That's a good question. I think that I will say that commenting has huge value in the sense that it's going to increase your searchability for the purpose of not necessarily people saying the right keywords or things like that, but it's going to show activity, right? So when Google or search engine platforms like Google are looking for things to point people to when they ask certain things into the question box, right, and the search box of Google, they want to point them in the direction of the best possible information that there is, right? So if you have a blog that maybe say that blog's a year old, but it seems to be still always getting good traction from searchability, and people continuously, even a year later, leave little comments here and there, that just shows activity on your page. So what that is doing is it's updating your website without even you having to update it to a certain level, right? It's keeping things from staying stagnant on your website. The other thing that can help with that too is that some comments usually are posed by people asking questions, right? And you're answering those questions in the comments. Again, searchability, right? Now someone could type something into Google, and maybe it's not even just the article or the blog that is answering that question, but it's somewhere in the comments too that you've answered that question. So comments definitely, they can help, certainly, for a few reasons. They help your searchability from keeping your website active because people are doing things on it. They're staying on your website longer too. Again, they're spending time there. And then you never know what questions are going to come up that are now going to get asked in Google, and now you're going to show up for that too.
Right. That's good advice. When you talk about creativity, we mentioned creativity in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and thinking about these platforms, how important, because there's so many different things you could do. Like you could just
Sure.
post a little simple ad with a pretty picture, or you could make a video, or you could have a live event, or
Mm-hmm.
how important is it to think outside the box when it comes to marketing?
I wouldn't
Or is that
stress.
important?
I wouldn't stress yourself, because I feel like there's a lot of pressure put on all of us innately, especially as creatives, right? That are
Right.
doing creative business. Like if you're writing, if you're an artist, you're a musician, whatever, especially as a creative in whatever
Right.
capacity, you're already putting pressure on yourself, period. Like
Right.
on a daily basis. Let's just be honest, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't want you to stress so much about thinking about I need to do something that goes viral. That's the only way to succeed. What we find is that transparency and authenticity surpasses all of it, right? Which is why
Wow.
some things that seem silly, or not even just silly, but we can't even believe some things go viral sometimes. But then when we really sit down and watch them, they're really honest, or they're very transparent, or they're very authentic, right? And that's what we all are clinging to. And I will say, especially in a world where, yes, we're more connected than ever digitally, but we're also longing for more of truth and connection and all that stuff. The more honest, transparent, and authentic you can be, that will always surpass you just trying to do something super creative for the sake of creativity.
What would authenticity look like in my marketing? Does that mean that I make a very short but authentic video clip about something that I'm doing? Does that show up in my copy? Like what?
Well, it
When you
should
say,
show up in your copy, especially as a blogger, right? You know, it should
right,
show up in your writing style, and I would assume that that's going to just happen naturally, as long as you're not copying anyone. It's going to happen, right? It's going to be authentic because you're writing it, right?
right,
But in terms of like video content and things like that, there's no reason for you to put on this whole production or whatever. You're a blogger, right? That's what you do. So you need to think to the strengths around, okay, here's what my topics are around. What are some other ways that people digest that topic, right? Outside of a blog, right? What are other ways that people like to engage with that type of idea, that type of topic, right? So like here, you do this podcast, right? This is a creative marketing endeavor, right? But we're just talking, right? So it's not this whole big thing, right?
right. We're not going to break out into song and dance here.
Right, I know. You're never going to see me do that on social media. And that's because it wouldn't be very authentic to me, right? I'm not,
Right.
you know, I love a good dance party, don't get me wrong. It's great. It's just not my style on social media. Truthfully, like for example, I do stuff like this on my stories. I'll sit there and I'll talk, and people kind of put it on play and they listen. And you really kind of have to just dive in a little bit, get messy to an extent. You want to have a strategy around where you're posting and what type of what you're going to talk about at the very, very beginning. But if you're not sure how or exactly what that's going to look like, don't get caught up in that. Just do it, because to a certain extent, you need to just do it, experience it, and see what people react to, see how people engage with it, to figure out how to shift and adjust. And the longer you're on a platform and more consistent with it, the more you're going to understand how to optimize it and get better at it.
Right. So you really, I like how you mentioned being messy and just kind of trying out stuff and figuring out.
Yeah, done is better than
your
perfect.
wheelhouse.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. because I think that people struggle with like authenticity versus likability. Like you want your audience to like you, right? You don't want to come off as a complete, con or fraud or fake person. So okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't mean authentic in the say that like they need to know everything about every detail of everything you think in your life. That's not really what I mean. I just mean that you just want to do things in a way that feel good to you to put it out there. If you're doing something on social media for the sake of doing it and it doesn't feel good, then don't do that. It won't. Right. It's not going to work as well for you as it would for someone else.
Okay, that because a lot of people will put stuff out because they just want to gain
absolutely
an audience or attention. Mm-hmm. And what you're putting out might be the antithesis of the message of your blog or whatever it is that you're selling, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like there are marketers who are super flashy and colorful and they do all kinds of animated stuff. And I love watching all that because I'm like, oh, this is so fun, right? But am I going to do that? Is that going to resonate with my people as much? Probably not, right? And it's not going to feel very authentic coming from me. Not that I'm blah and boring, but it's just like, I do it in a different way.
Wonderful. You have so much knowledge here. Thank you so much for all of this. Now,
thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Tell us where we can find you.
Yep. So you can find me at my website, which is Wright Outcomes, WRIGHT outcomes.net, not com.net, where I've got all kinds of information about me and the services that I provide to service-based, product-based, bloggers, all kinds of people who are trying to run this life for themselves, right? In terms of helping you build that marketing presence and strategy. I also have a lot of really great DIY walkthrough resources on how to do well on Facebook, how to do well on Instagram, things like that. There's over 40 plus videos on that site where you can dive in yourself and get a little scrappy on that as well. So, and then as far as social media, you can find me everywhere at the same thing as my website. It's at Wright Outcomes on Facebook, Instagram, wherever. And
Are you on TikTok too?
I have an account. I haven't been brave enough to get into it yet. But that's a platform where I get intimidated because I'm like, oh, people are so creative. I'm just not this. This is not me.
Right. But those TikTok videos are
I know. I'm in awe of that creativity. It's amazing. So.
Yeah. Do you have, Rachele, do you have any last words of encouragement or wisdom for people like me who are really like dipping their feet into marketing and are nervous and scared?
So I said it just a little bit ago, but done is better than perfect. Truly, give yourself a plan, some sort of plan, some sort of structure, just so that you can use that as a baseline for figuring out if things are working or not, right? And you really have to, the best way to get better at this is you just have to start. And I wish I could say that, oh, you could take all the trainings in the world. You just got to start and you're going to make it work for you. And it's going to feel a lot less intimidating as soon as you do.
Thank you, Rachele, so much.
I really enjoyed my conversation with Rachele, and I hope that you were able to glean some insight from that conversation, particularly on which social media platform might work best for your blog or for your business, because it's not going to be the same for everyone. However, I do want to stress something that Rachele did talk about, which was the power of email marketing and of owning your email list and not depending on a social media platform to maintain all of your contacts, because if that platform disappears, then your contacts disappear. Tune in next week because I'm very excited about my guest. Her name is Noelle Anderson. She is a music therapist and she's going to talk to us about how we can use music to de-stress. So tune in next week for my conversation with Miss Noelle Anderson. And in the meantime, please visit my blog, zazo.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter, which gives updates about the blog and my podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram at Motivation to Write. That's one word, Motivation to Write. Okay, have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.